Hey, yes, it is Friday. It is Friday, and it's 9, so it's a random UK Cowboys time. Yeah, we are here on a Friday as opposed to our traditional Thursday because yesterday everyone was a little inebriated, a little bit intoxicated with the Queen's Jubilee celebrations. We've got with us, we've got the Godfather, of course, Mr. Jamie Smith. How are we doing, sir?
Yeah, I've sobered up a little bit now after yesterday's festivities. So
Yeah,
yeah,
talking about inebriation, I think you took it to the max. You were celebrating the hardest out of the UK Cowboys family, that's for sure. And joining with us as well, we got Bluff City Cowboys Marcus, as you may remember from day one of the draft. How we doing, Marcus, all the way over in sunny Tennessee?
I'm doing great, guys. Thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
No. Thank you for giving us your time, mate. I know you're over there doing about 4 things at once, but
I'm just trying to share at the pages.
Oh, you don't even worry about that, my man. But yeah, it is continuing on with our off-season programming. We're in the position breakdown series. This week is wide receiver. Next week it gets really spicy where we look at the O-line. But before I cook the news up, if you like, as we do at the start of every show, I get your guys' opinions. How do you feel about the Cowboys wide receiver core this year in comparison to others? I'll start with you, Jamie, and then I'll hit the same question to Marcus.
I'm gonna judgment it until we see how Michael Gallup comes back from his injury. I'm going to sit on the fence for now.
No, that's a fair answer. I get it. Yeah, I mean, when you're talking about Jalen Tolbert, James Washington, which we'll get to with the issues there as well. I get where you're coming from, certainly, and the chemical mash that you get with Dak Prescott. What about you, though, Marcus? How do you feel about the wide receiver core this year, or is your answer much the same? Want to wait and see?
I mean, I'm pretty much the same way, but on paper, I would say this may be one of the deepest receiving cores we've had in a while.
Okay, interesting. Going against the grain, I love it. I love it when somebody brings something different to the table rather than going with the flow.
Yeah.
Because I
didn't say the best. I said the deepest.
Yeah.
I think we can go one. I think we can go 1 through 5 with guys who can play on the field. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, and I think as well, which we'll tie into the conversation with this, is special teams as well. Because that's
you got the right guy.
Yeah, I mean, the conversations we had from rookie minicamp when I was speaking to Dallas media staff was they were very aiming heavily on special teams, punt and kickoff coverage, returns as well as defense. So it does seem to be an emphasis that seems to be the way they're going is those veteran players, which one of them is a wide receiver who's one of the oldest serving players on the Dallas Cowboys, is on that core. But when you look at it, you've got to think, well, okay, I get where you're going. You're trying to rotate now, get some of those older players moving through, getting long in the tooth, if you like. But I mean, yeah, it is. I see where you're coming from. It is very deep. I agree. In terms of talent, I'm with Jamie then on that. I'll take a chunk out of both of your takes there and join you on that one. But it's certainly going to be very fun. That's for sure. I'm just hoping they've got rid of, for Oxnard, I'm hoping they got rid of that, that barrier or that fence that was down the end zone that Michael Gallup flipped over. Yeah. I just hope that they've moved on from that barrier, is my hope. But yeah, so should we start the show off as we do every week, guys, with the news and updates, and then we can crack on with the show?
Let's get to it.
All right, let's smash into it. Lots to get through. Okie dokie. Well, the first thing to come out the gate is Lyle Collins. His post-June Cup money has hit the Cowboys cap space. So then the Cowboys now rank 5th in NFL cap space. They now sit there with a very chunky $22.5 million in cap space. For you guys, Do you think they're going to do anything with that, or do you think that they're sitting on this for a rollover for next year with Dak's contract?
Yeah, I think it's got something to do with it, and then I think
you think
depending on what happens at training camp, and you can tweak a little bit here and there, can't you, to bring something. I can't see it doesn't seem to be the Cowboys way now. There's a massive splash. Or, my hopes high up for that, should I say? They say there's going to be some contracts that need renewing and tweaking next year. So we've got a lot of positions covered. I said it's probably going to be the back end of the roster build up, and it just to add some mix, maybe like you say, a bit of experience here and there, bit of special
like
teams.
some bodies on linebacker, something like that. Yeah. All right. I mean, are you on going down the same road, Marcus, or do you think they are going to spend it, or do you think that they're sitting on this for that rollover for Dak's contract next year to try and at least help cushion the blow?
I think they're definitely sitting on it, but I will say this, and I'm sure you guys could probably say the same thing.
Yeah.
The last 2 to 3 years, we've all pretty much known like who's the starter, who's the backup. Mm-hmm. We could even go as far down as who's third string at pretty much every position. This year, wide receiver, we don't know what's going to happen. Linebacker, we have assumptions, but we don't know what's going to happen. Defensive end, we have a lot of question marks. So we do have money now so that if we go into camp or these linebackers don't come back healthy, because we have a few of them, these receivers start to linger into camp and they're not healthy, we do have some money to go out and get a mid-tier player. Not a superstar, but somebody $4, $5, $6 million. So if that happens, I think they'll do it. But if not, I just think they sit on it.
Yeah, I mean, because they that will look to go down as well, because they still haven't signed Jake Ferguson, the tight end draft pick from the 4th round. So there's still so that will come down slightly, but people were sending some messages last week when it came through, and they were like, "Oh, look at that!" And it just so happened to be that it's $22.5 million. That just so happens to be Amari Cooper's contract. I'm talking wide receiver, but it's not that the Cowboys are sitting there going, "Oh yeah," and they're that methodical that they could figure out that composition that the two would match up. It's just the way that these things go. We'll talk about the Amari contract in a moment, because there is a little bit to be said about that, about what life will be like. But, it's just one of those things. I'm not putting any conspiracy on that. But here we go then. Moving further into the news, so there's some new IR rules that have been put this year, because obviously the rules have changed due to the pandemic. That's gone, so we're into post-pandemic rule. So the new rules are you can have 16 players now on your practice squad, so makes it a bit deeper. So that's some good news. And you can bring back 8 players after 4 weeks from IR, and you could do that with each respective player twice in one season. So yeah, I mean, it was before that you can bring any back. Then they brought these very weird rules where you could bring one back from IR. The other one could be that short IR. If we remember many years ago, and it worked in our favor with the Tony Romo situation. But that's all changed. Now it is you can bring 8 players back, which is still, I think, is still quite a lot. When you think about it, like 8 players moving to IR in a season, because I get the idea is that you're post-pandemic. So what you don't want to do is create these teams doing that roster shuffle that was happening the last 2 years to try and swing these players in your favor, moving players practice squad into IR, then back again and in and out. So I get it. It was needed. It needed to be done. And it's also a way for us to strike out there we go. The pandemic's over in the NFL now. So
Mike, let me ask you a question, because I haven't looked at all the rules. What did they do about the rules where you can have a guy who's been in the league more than 3 years on the practice squad?
Yes, I don't think that has changed.
Did they add more? Because there was a limit.
Yeah. I think that it was as well. because the rules did change slightly, that it's now incurred years.
Mm-hmm.
So, and like the incurred years ruling and the language on that is it's a minefield. Like
Right.
there's some players where I looked at it and I'm like, surely he can't be practice squad eligible. And it turns out that he is, and through like the wording. So I've almost tried to give up trying to figure it out anymore.
Gotcha.
It's just like one of them weird, like, like yes and no's. And does he do this? Yes and no. And it just keeps going on and moving out. And you're just like, whatever. But yeah, I'm sure we'll get somebody to try and help us figure it out. I'll try and get some words on that and see where we're going. But in other news, OTAs. Sam Williams looking good. Putting some guys in the backfield out. Tyler Smith, interesting one. Looks good in OTAs. Played left guard and left tackle with the first team. Looked good in both times. So far, people are giving him the thumbs up. What's your take, guys, on Tyler Williams so far in OTAs and him looking to be used as like that, almost that swing tackle now? It seems to be the distance or is it that? Here we go. I'll give you quite a long-winded question for you guys to answer. Him playing first team left tackle, is that them looking to put him like, is this life after Tyron Smith that they're looking at, or is it that they're looking at it for this season as in that swing tackle role? Like, because like, well, let's go. What's he doing? Can he do it? Can he perform? What do you guys make of it?
Personally, I haven't heard anything about Josh Ball, so that's concerning.
Yeah.
And I don't think they're going to bring in a tackle, honestly. I think they're going to roll with what they have. So you got basically three rookies who are eligible to play that position.
Yeah.
Including Tyler Smith, and Josh Ball didn't play at all last year. So I say, why not put him out there and see what he can do? I mean, he played left tackle in college. And let me put this little nugget out there.
Go on.
One of my close friends actually was invited to OTA, so he got to watch.
Sweet. And
he got to sit into a few of the film studies.
Yes. See, this is why I love getting you on.
and Dan Quinn is known more for stopping the tape for good guys than bad guys.
Yeah.
And he said Tyler Smith was one of the guys that he stopped the tape for.
I like it.
That says a lot about how he's looking in practice, where the defensive coach actually stops the tape to say, look at how this guy is performing so far. And that wasn't this week with the whole Micah Parsons thing. This was last week.
Okay, interesting. I like it. What do you make, Jay? Do you think this is like them looking to see what they've got in him, life after Tyron Smith? Is that more?
Yeah, I think he's going to start the season at guard, isn't he? That's probably going to be the natural thing, but I think just more so as well. You've got to kind of look at the worst case scenario, because if you look at, and this is no knock on Tyron Smith, but he just can't stay. He can't stay fit and healthy. Can he? We're not to start all the games this year, so you've got to look at that there. And with him being our first round pick this year, and he's in country, you've got to, like you say, see what you've got. But unless Tyron Smith gets in training camp, I see him starting at left guard, and like you say, and then what's the right word to?
I think I'm not sure if we lost you there, Jay.
But this Yorkshire flipping internet, it might be my laptop. I'll quickly log out my laptop and I'll get it put on the tablet instead. Give me 2 minutes.
Hold on. Here we go. I got you. I'm just trying to edit your mic settings now. That might help you out a bit. There we go. Try that before you make a move. I just tried to edit something. But in other news as well, Matt Waletzko, we just mentioned him. He's having had some extra time in OTAs at left tackle because Tyron Smith was out. Good news. Some good news. Micah Parsons pretty much picking up where he left off. I don't know if you guys seen that. Making moves, and he's doing little things as well. I don't know if you've seen this, Marcus, but there's little things where like like, because obviously they can't tackle the quarterback in these situations, but there's little things where he's just like patting Cooper Rush on the back or on the helmet, and little things like tapping, and you know that if that's a game situation where that happened, you know for a fact that that's a sack.
Yeah.
So that's one little thing. Oh, getting a bit of feedback from somewhere. There we go. Hold on a minute. It's Jamie messing with his different settings here. We'll get him sorted. Yeah, he's having some issues.
We got Jamie's twin.
There we go.
Can't put the world through that.
There we are, mate. There we go. You're looking good. So yeah, that's some good news. In other news as well, Parsons and Tank. It's very playful to say the least, but Parsons said that, you know, he's out there, he's going to get the sack, he's going to be the sack leader. Tank's turned around and said, right, okay, we're on for a sack race, are we? I'm not going to let that happen. There's been a bit of to and fro on this, but here's something I'm going to ask you. People are saying, yeah, Micah Parsons, yeah, sure. Some people are saying Tank, re-emergence, you know, people are going to be concentrating on Parsons, but I think people are forgetting Dante Fowler's on the other side. Is he not in for the race?
Yeah.
People forget it. What do you guys think? If you were to have a race, I mean, I'm going to say Parsons, but if you were to have a race, who's your money down on to have the most sacks? Dante Fowler or Tank?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Oh,
Sneaky.
man.
I really want to throw another name in the mix, but I can't see him being on par.
Dorrance Armstrong?
No, you know, I have a soft spot for Chauncey Golston. I just don't know if I'll get this name.
Hey, how he develops could very well be as well.
Yeah,
I just think that. Go on, Marcus.
I was going to say, I think Golston's going to play more inside this year, though, like he did in college.
I mean, look, you know, you've got a third. I mean, it was the third overall pick over that side. Could be. You never know. You don't know what you're getting with Dante Fowler because obviously the history and everything. But you get that guy that was so electric. Like Dante Fowler. What people don't realize that you could have taken Dante Fowler as a freshman in college, and he could have played in the NFL. The guy was that athletic and that strong. He didn't need 3 years in college. And, you know, I get it with the NIL in college now. Players don't really need to rush to get into the NFL. But Dante Fowler really did rush to get into the NFL. And, he you know, I think he definitely was a guy that just hit the ground running on that one. So, yeah, there's an interesting one. And then the last piece of news, which is the bad news, to end it all. Marion Barber this week on Wednesday was found dead in his apartment by Frisco police. So we'll just give our shout out to Marion the Barbarian Barber. I think, yeah, we'll give a shout out to the Barber family. You know, our thoughts are obviously with them. Crazy situation. I know there's speculation and situations and a lot of whispers as to what it all is. I'm sure it will all come out. I have read some of the story on it all, which is pretty sad. You know, we were struggling with mental health and being arrested and all the rest of it. But you know, needless to say, and here's a crazy one. Marion Barber, the one thing I always remember him, I don't know if you guys can remember it. Preston was against the Patriots, and we were backed up against our own 5-yard line, and he goes backwards into our own end zone, just takes tackle after tackle, swings out to the right, runs down and gets a first down. Yeah. You watch that and you're like, oh my God, this guy is crazy.
Right.
I was trying to equate him to like, do you know what's funny with Marion Barber? I think he would be better served in today's game than it was back then. I think he was in the wrong era for a running back. You know, like just that heavy trucking, 2 down, 2 yard, grinded out type running back. You imagine that in today's game, how handy that would be. Just that bowling ball in the middle.
I don't think he ever got enough credit for what he did as well. Like you say, he was just
I agree.
an absolute beast, and he was one of the top guys at the time. Like you're saying, it just never seemed to get that recognition. Oh, outside of the Cowboys world, anyway.
Yeah,
It was always a joy to watch.
He was fun to watch. I will say that. Yeah. Go on, Marcus.
One of the most underrated college running backs ever.
Yes.
That guy was
Minnesota. Was he Minnesota Golden Gophers?
Minnesota, yeah. If it wasn't for Lawrence Maroney being there with him, he probably would have been a 2,000-yard back in college.
Yeah.
That guy was unreal in college.
Yeah, I can remember. I'm remembering back. I can see going and just like watching the pace on him. You know, that first step. And like you say, yeah, he was held back by the rest of the roster. And I know as well, T.O. made mention on his social media, I think it was Twitter, about like how it made him feel so ill to hear about him because, you know, they were together and they were dynamic, you know, little group. And it was just a shame that he was in that era, I think, where and you think of the Barber family as well. They were all fantastic players.
Yeah. Definitely.
None of them were bad, but he will always be remembered. I still even think I've got like Madden 2004 or whatever it is, and he's like on there. I'm not sure what year it was. I know I've got one on there, and he's on there. Don't think I've got a console to play it on though. So makes it pointless. But all right, guys, let's get into it. We are officially into the positional breakdown series. So we're going to look at all the wide receivers. I mean, the guys at the back end, we'll just give our few thoughts on those guys, but we'll talk mainly about the main ones, which is a good way to go. And I get your thoughts and feelings and predictions, and it'll all work towards our final 53 when it comes to Camp and Oxnard. But we'll start off with our wide receiver one now, CD Lamb. He's on his third year of a rookie deal. They're going to give him the 5th year option, so we'll call it the third of the 5th year. He was a first round out of Oklahoma in 2020. In 2022, he is a whopping 3.8 mil against the cap, which for wide receivers, the way it's going now is absolute pennies.
Yeah.
But here's my question for you guys, right? We'll start with the NFC East, right? Because the NFC East, since the draft, has got very interesting in terms of wide receivers. And then we'll go for the entire NFL. But where do you rank CeeDee Lamb in terms of wide receiver ones in the NFC East? Yeah, not so simple.
I thought this would be easy tonight, and you throw that one straight out.
I'm high on McLaurin, so McLaurin's number one. That's just
that's what. Yeah, and you got to think the Eagles have just buy themselves one of the best wide receivers in the NFL too.
Yeah, now I could make a debate between Brown and Lamb for number 2.
Yeah, you see, I'm just going with Brown because I'm just saying Brown over Lamb only because you've seen it more consistently. Where Lamb has been, and you could argue because he's been playing so much from the slot, he's almost been that when it was Gallup and Lamb on the field, they were battling for the wide receiver 2 position. So you've really only seen Lamb in that role. You've never really seen him as that primary receiver. So I'm giving the edge to Brown for that level of consistency as a wide receiver 1. But I do get where you're coming from, Marcus. Yeah. You know, you can argue with it because Brown is not without his faults, drops, injuries, fumbles. So what are we all going for? So I tell you what, Jay, what are you going for? Wide receiver, what, 2, 3, 4? Oh, the 4th.
I'm going to go 3, but it's very close just for the fact that it's still.
I mean, you can't put
still kind of still. I say raw, loose tongue just for the fact, like I say, that we've not really seen him as an out-and-out 1 until this year. So I think he's close, but give it another 12 months, and I think we'll be having a different conversation.
Yeah, because I know some people will be like, "Oh well, don't forget Dotson for the Commanders." Yeah, but he's a rookie. We have not seen him play a single snap in the NFL yet. I get you can make arguments, but wait until we see the helmet on first before we go making assumptions. But what would you say then? You know, are you going with 2 then? Are you, Marcus?
because Brown went to Ole Miss, I'll give him the nod for 2. And I'll put Lamb as a close third. I gotta bring my Ole Miss guys up whenever I can.
But here's what's crazy, right? We're all saying he's the 3rd wide receiver 1 in the NFC East. Yet in his draft in 2020, he was classed as the best NFL wide receiver coming in that class.
Yeah.
So it just goes to show you that how quickly because really before the draft, the Eagles wide receiver 1 was Devontae Smith. And you could say, sure, yeah, Heisman Trophy winner. That says a lot for itself. But it just goes to show, though, that when you start mixing it all up, all of a sudden, one of the best players in the 2020 NFL draft is the 3rd best in the division.
Yeah.
It is crazy how far it flips. Now, I don't know if you want to try and do this, but where do you see him as wide receiver 1s in and amongst all the wide receiver 1s in the NFL?
Ooh.
I know that's going very deep. For me, I'm saying he's around about, without really looking at names, and I'm sure that if I was to do it, people will give me other names, but it will drop him down. But I'm saying around the lucky 13th, somewhere around there.
Without going through a bunch of names off the top of my head, I was thinking more like 17.
Yeah, in the teens.
Yeah. But that's just like quarterback. Once you get between a certain range, you're kind of splitting hairs once you get between like 13 and 20.
Yeah.
You can go any direction.
Yeah, and exactly as Joe says here, at the end of the day, that we have not seen him as a wide receiver 1. There was a wide receiver taken a few picks later than him in the exact same draft, Jefferson, who's just absolutely shown that he can be. Yeah. Like, he's a top 10 wide receiver. People were like, if he was to say that junior draft, you'd be like, nah, no way. Especially when you look at the teams that these players went to, you'd think it'd be the other way around.
Yeah.
Now, my only argument with CeeDee Lamb that I disagree with in the narrative is a lot of people say, we expected more from him, or we want more from CeeDee Lamb. Bear in mind, he's buried on a roster with a lot of wide receiver and a lot of options. He had Amari Cooper there, who was really trying to get more targets, but he didn't. You had Dalton Schultz, who suddenly came out the gates. That was going well for him. And bear in mind that CeeDee Lamb, the last 2 years, has had the most receptions and yards for the Dallas Cowboys. So I disagree with what people say when they say CeeDee Lamb, but I understand why they're saying it, because you wanted him to be this massive explosion. But you're not going to get that. But now I think you will. What do you guys make of the talk that CeeDee Lamb has disappointed so far?
Is it not probably more of a case of that we haven't really utilised his potential? Like I say, if you see a lot of teams, like I'm just right out there. You look at Cincinnati with Chase or in his first year, but you wide receiver 1, you throw the ball into the end zone, throw the ball into double coverage, and let the playmaker, let him make plays. That's what CeeDee Lamb did in college. That's what you pay him the big money for. Get the ball chucked in, and that's what we need. And that's where we were a little bit too conservative for me last year, that we didn't take enough risks. And I think now, like you say, now you out there, and you've got rid of Amari Cooper, and you say like our wide receiver 1 is CeeDee Lamb. Wide receiver 2 is more likely going to be Gallup when he's fit and healthy. So these guys can make plays, throw the ball up. Like I said, if we throw some picks, we throw some picks, but you can say, well, you've got a 50-50 chance, aren't you, of getting a touchdown?
Yeah, well, I mean, like, with CeeDee, he's that yak guy, isn't he? You're not going to get a very you're not going to get much depth in his route. But what you're going to do, you don't want that to happen, because he's never was in Oklahoma either. He wasn't this savvy route runner, which is why, like, I didn't make much. Like, I understand, CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper last year talking routes, but I was watching, I was thinking, but it's not really CeeDee Lamb's forte
Right,
to want to
that's
go
not
out there and he's more that guy that you want to try and you'll get into his stem, he'll burst, he'll break, chuck him the ball and just let him try and create yards, get him that yak. And that's more of his game, which is really why. And yeah, I'll ask you this, Marcus. What do you do with CeeDee Lamb in his positional play this year? Do you put him out as a flanker or do you continue to play him in that slot role?
All right. Before I answer, let me just give a couple of shout outs because I see the comments are coming in.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Shouts out DJ Dog. I know he's a regular on you guys' show. And
Yeah.
also Joe.
Royalty.
Yeah. Joe joined us from Italy. Thank you for tuning in. Then I see we got Mendoza in the house. So, Mendoza, thank you for joining. And Dominique joining us on a Friday. Appreciate you. Rob Ronan from Germany.
Yeah.
Thank you for tuning in as well.
We got them all across the world.
Yeah, definitely. You guys have an international show.
Hey, they're only here for you, mate. They don't really listen to our ramblings. Trust me.
It's more Friday than anything. Trust me. It's not me.
yeah, that's it. People are all right to stay up a bit later. So, like the folks like over further out into Europe or even an hour further, they're like, yeah, it's all right. It's 10 o'clock. It's wine time now.
All right.
Yeah.
Let me answer the question real quick. And let me say this first, because I know a lot of people talk about CeeDee Lamb and not knowing if he's a number one. We have to look at it. I look at it from this perspective.
Yeah.
Michael Gallup's a really good receiver.
Yes.
Amari Cooper is a really good receiver.
Yeah.
Despite having those two guys on his team and him being, in some situations, the third option.
Here we go.
He's still getting 1,000 yards and 75 catches. So we don't know what he's going to be when he has the opportunities to kind of be the guy. And on top of that, because we have guys like Gallup who are pretty much stuck at the Z, and a guy like Cooper who, even though fans want to see him inside, he's been pretty much stuck at the X.
Yeah.
We haven't had a chance to see Lamb really move around in positions. The most we got to see it was last year because Gallup was out so much and Cooper was in and out. And he looked really good going inside out. So I'm hoping we get to see them do that a lot more this year because of necessity and also just him being the most talented receiver on the field for most of the year, depending on when Gallup returns.
Well, I mean, like, just to add to your point, I'm going through CeeDee Lamb's chart where he was taking catches from targets. So on the left, like deep left on the outside, 4 targets. Where's right? So and then deep right on the right as a flanker, 9 targets. So it literally is, when you look at it, so that's 13 targets out of a total of like whatever it was, 73 targets he had. Yeah, like you say, it reiterates your point. 80 receptions he had last year. So, you're looking at over 100 targets and 13 of them were on the outside. Reiterating your point, it'd be interesting to see how that works. Me personally, I actually think, based on the fact, and we'll talk about Michael Gallup in a second, that he's really going to spend the first part of the season out with the injury recovering. You've got a rookie. You've got James Washington, which we'll talk about in a second as well. Simi Fehoko, Noah Brown as well, who are, they will give you production, but they're not going to be of that top tier caliber. I think you get the reverse now of what's been happening with CeeDee Lamb in recent times, where now he's going to demand and chew really a very big bulk of that production and targets that Dak wants to put out. So now we're about to find out really, truly what he is.
Yeah.
Especially in that first half of the season while players establish what they are.
Right. I agree.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to it. And I actually think that CeeDee Lamb, for some people on their fantasy teams, need to be taking him quite early. And I shouldn't be saying that because me and you were in a money league together.
He's definitely on my list.
Yeah, I know. It's just when you look at it, he will be getting a good tier of production. But we'll talk about the next guy then, CD Lamb. CD Lamb? Michael Gallup. Sorry, I'm reading as I'm talking. You know, like when you read something and you go, yeah, like when the wife's talking to you, go, yeah, that's right. And you're reading something and you go, yeah, that's right, Cowboys. And you're like, why didn't I just say that? Why did that word come out my mouth? Anyway, CD Lamb. I'll get there now. Sorry, guys. So, yes, he is currently going to be unavailable, I think, most definitely for camp. Most definitely preseason. Most definitely the first few games. How quick he comes on, I don't know. But here he is, Michael Gallup, 3rd round from Colorado State, taken 2018. He, believe it or not, is on cap the most expensive wide receiver. And
that's crazy.
I know. It's crazy when you say it. They gave him a new 5-year contract. So that's worth $57.5 million in total. In 2022, he's 4.5 million on the cap. When some teams are paying over 20 million for a wide receiver, we've just talked about the first two and they barely reaching 10.
Yeah.
Now, as I say, he got the ACL injury on the touchdown catch, but he also started the season late because he and he was coming into the season with an injury as well. But I've always called him, I don't know if you like this, Marcus, I've always called him Des Bryant light.
Okay.
I don't know, because, you know, there's that downfield physical presence, quick burst from his get off, you know, hits the route stems nice and crisp, nice and early. He's not going to be that huge route tree kind of guy, but on the jump balls, on those 50-50 balls, and with the ball in his hands, he's a physical presence. What do you like about Michael Gallup?
I mean, everything you named is what I love about him. He's a great 50-50 ball guy.
Yeah.
If you go back and watch his college tape, he's a good yak guy also. We just haven't seen it yet because they pretty much just stuck him at that Z and told him to run the 9 or the post and win the jump ball. So I'm looking forward to possibly seeing him get more X work and run some of those intermediate routes a little bit more. So there's a lot to love about Gallup, and he's a very physical player on top of that.
Oh yeah, definitely. Some people are saying the style of game with the ACL injury, they worry about how he comes back. But for me, I think if we were talking in terms of medical technology from like a decade ago, I'd say yeah. But the way ACL injuries are recovering nowadays, I don't think that's much of a concern.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be.
I see Joe doesn't think he'll be back until December. I think it'll be a little bit sooner than that, Joe.
Yeah, I'm thinking like around October, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, with the way ACL injuries recover, and they done something weird because I don't know if you remember, they didn't give him the treatment for a while. They just left it for a while. So I asked the question. I was like, well, why are they waiting? Because it's not really helping anybody. It's not doing anyone any good. But apparently it was on medical advice to leave it because it makes the recovery time shorter. And it's something that they trialed and it does work apparently.
Okay.
So, yeah, I know. And I'm like, okay, interested. It could have been just blowing smoke, mine, but we'll wait and see. But what about you, Jay? Here's a question for you. Is Michael Gallup one of the sneakiest steals in the NFL draft for the Cowboys?
Oh, yeah. Just listening to the comments and they were going back and forth. One thing for me about Michael Gallup, he's got swag, but he's not.
Yeah.
He's not in your face about it, kind of thing. Like you'll see some wide receivers that are very. I'm trying to find the right word. Like you say, you know, like they're pretty much quite in your face about being good and. Michael Gallup just,
getting the job done.
He's sneaky. I like Michael Gallup, and who doesn't like a Michael Gallup toe drag catch down the sideline? You know what I mean? And I think if you look back through some of the shows prior to his injury, you could argue he could be wide receiver one on quite a few teams in the NFL when he's fit and healthy.
Mm.
I was a bit concerned about the money that they paid out, but more so just for the fact that the injury. But they obviously see something in the medical reports that don't concern him, and the Cowboys obviously do a lot of due diligence, and they've got some top doctors. So, like I say, not just a smart move getting him in the draft when we drafted him, but also getting him for the money that we got him for, because he could have commanded, especially with the money that's being thrown around for wide receivers at the minute.
Yeah,
could have commanded a lot of money this off season, and he's obviously comfortable staying in Dallas and sees that there's a chance of winning something. And let's hope that faith that he put in us, been coming back to us, he's paid off with a good run this year.
Yeah, and I think, me personally, I quite like as well when you stop and you think about the two different types of wide receiver you have in terms of when you got them on the field in CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup, because they're just so starkly different in their styles.
Yeah.
And that just creates, when you think about when it comes to game planning with your cornerbacks, you're just like, what a nightmare. Because I know we'll talk about the other guys in a moment, but you stop and you say, right, so now we've got one guy who can get the jump ball, be a physical presence. We've got one guy over here who's going to be the short reception guy and get yards on the ground. How are we going to try and stop this? Because we can't bracket both wide receivers,
right?
Because then, and I like the dynamic of, and I liked it last year with Amari Cooper in, because Amari Cooper then he's your surgical knife that can just tear through everything. But I like this dynamic with the two guys, depending on whether Lamb goes into the flanker role or stays in the slot. I like the way that these pair, how they will create a bad mismatch for defenses. That's for sure. But let's talk about the next guy, who's been with the Cowboys now for 6 years. So he's one of the veterans. Yeah, one of the veterans and older players on the Cowboys roster, and that's Noah Brown. So he's got signed to a 1-year deal, just shy of 1.2 mil on the cap this year. Now, we have had slight flashes of Noah Brown as a wide receiver, making catches when we've needed them. But I think, for me, Noah Brown is the special teams. He's built for the role. You could almost call him a tight end because he's so big. He's this big lumbering guy, but he's just got some top-notch top speed. So let me get your guys' takes on Noah Brown. Where do you see him as in terms of? I see DJ Dog reiterating the special teams talk. Yeah. Is that really it for you guys? Is that how you see him?
100%.
Yeah.
Me and Mendoza, probably for the past 6 years, have been the only people on all these podcasts and in these chats telling people Noah Brown's not going anywhere.
No.
Regardless of who your favorite height, weight, speed guy is, the undrafted guy you like, you can't get past special teams once you get past that fourth receiver.
Yeah.
And that guy has consistently been a 40% plus special teams guy.
Yeah.
And you have to have that on your team. You can't have 6 guys at one position and expect all of them to be offensive weapons. Somebody has to do that dirty work, and until somebody unseats him, he's going to continue to do that.
Yeah.
And real quick, somebody asked a question up top. I think it was Rob. He addressed me about the targets. He was asking, do I think Kellen Moore would change his philosophy and force the ball a bit to the wide receiver one? Well, for the past 2 years, CeeDee Lamb has been getting about 120 targets a year. That's been putting him barely top 25. I don't think the philosophy will change, but like I said before, Michael Gallup's really good. He's going to get 100 targets. Amari Cooper's been really good. He's going to get 140 targets. 140 of those are now gone, and you can cut out half of Gallup's. Now, I'm not trying to say the receivers we don't have coming up aren't as good, which they probably aren't, but they probably aren't going to demand all of those targets that are gone. So I don't see Lamb getting spoon-fed, but I would be shocked if his targets don't hit the 140, 150 range, which will put him around top 10 in targets.
Yeah.
I don't think the philosophy will change, though, but just by him being the best receiver for a long period of time, he'll probably get a whole lot more targets.
Yeah, and I can see it with the way things are going. Like, I know they got, which we'll talk about, Jalen Tolbert, who's that burner type guy. But I can see Kellen Moore really trying to emphasize a little to making the offense a little bit more West Coasty, which plays in Lamb's favor.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So that's an interesting one. But okay, let's look at the next guy. Because Noah Brown's fairly easy to cover. I mean, just going over it in the last since 2017 with the Cowboys, 690 special teams snaps, 1 missed tackle. There we go. That's all you got to do. You just say that and you go, all right. Kick returns, kick coverage, punt returns. He's on it all. They utilize him. If you go and have a look at it, he checks all the boxes for what you need from a special teamer. He's up there quick. He's one of the first guys as a gunner. Big guy as well with big wingspan.
And he's still young. People forget he came in the league at 19.
Yeah. Hold on. He's 26.
He's 26. But I mean, on this team, that's a veteran. Yeah. But an interesting stat I looked up before we came on the show. Do you guys know who the youngest receiver on the team is right now?
I'm gonna go off top, and I'm just looking. CD Lamb. I'm gonna go.
Correct. We have 7 guys on this roster who have not gotten an offensive snap, and they're all older than CD Lamb.
It is funny when you stop and you think about it, because here's a crazy one as well. I was looking at, because we were talking about Dante Fowler earlier. Dante Fowler and Randy Gregory were drafted in the same year, and Randy Gregory has 400 snaps.
Yeah.
Man, you're looking crazy. But there we go. All right, let's look at the next guy, and I'm really going to leave you guys to talk about him, and that is the free agent pickup, James Washington from Pittsburgh Steelers. He's in his 5th year. He's on a 1-year deal with the Dallas Cowboys, worth $1.1 million against the cap. I'll let you first, Marcus. What do you see the role and how they're going to use James Washington? Bear in mind, he was seen in OTAs in a walking boot this week.
First of all, I got to say, I love James Washington coming out of Oklahoma State.
Yes.
He was one of my favorite receivers coming out that year. That guy, you talk about Dez Light, go back and watch him at Oklahoma State.
Yeah, okay. I see where you go.
That guy was doing it. I mean, he took over that mantle after Dez graduated. Played for the Steelers. To me, that scheme didn't really fit him.
Yeah.
Because to me,
buried on that.
Yeah. To me, he's more of a deep to intermediate guy. And the past 3 to 4 years, Ben's arm is shot. So they've been a 5-yard or less team pretty much consistently. So we haven't seen the best of James Washington, in my opinion. I think he's going to be a solid guy. I think he's going to come in and he's going to supplement that role of Michael Gallup because they have a very similar skill set.
Yeah.
He may be able to give us a little bit more inside than Gallup could give us. So
the agility is there. I would agree that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, not a lot, but Gallup.
No. Yeah.
Gallup gave us 0 inside. I think you could put Washington inside and he could give you a couple of snaps and he could threaten on a short yardage play.
Yeah.
So that's a good question that Craig asked about whether he'll start ahead of Tolbert.
I think so.
We could talk about Tolbert in a minute, but at this point, I would say if you're talking about the Z position, I think Washington's a better bet to go there than Tolbert.
Yeah. Do you agree with that, Jamie? Is Washington playing over Tolbert? Mainly, you've seen what he can do in the NFL.
I think to start with, I definitely think he's going to be wide receiver for you. And it's a smart pickup, and he's a veteran wide receiver, but he's not too old, so you've still got a lot of tread on the tire, so to speak. And it gives you, like I say, that different option, doesn't it? Like I said, how many snaps he's going to get, it's hard to say. But with how we like to spread his wide receivers out now, he'll get quite a few catches. But yeah, and like I said, just from a veteran standpoint, just with how young this receiver core is as well, that we need someone like James Washington in that locker room.
Yeah. And you go back and you look, James Washington, he's had his best year, 2019, 735 yards. When you think about it, that when you beat me to the punchline really on that one, Marcus, that Big Ben was having trouble with his throwing arm. When you stop and you think 2019, really, when you think about it, that's about the time when Ben's arm was starting to deteriorate. When you stop and you think about it. So like you coincide with his best year was when you started to see the decline of Big Ben. So I think he's not going to have a 700-yard season for the Cowboys. I can't see that. But I do think he's going to be, a good, solid 400, 500-yard guy. And he will get you first downs. He doesn't very rarely drop the ball.
Exactly.
Yeah. When you look at it, and I'm looking at it now, the targets. So on 218 targets in his career, 1600 over 1,600 yards, and only one fumble in that time. Here's an interesting one, Mind. Are you concerned they didn't address the injury with the media? And this is a strange one because, like, it is funny that, like they didn't address it, which is weird. That they just completely avoided it. But the thing that I find weird is if he wasn't going to practice and he's in a walking boot, why bring him out in the first place anyway?
Yeah.
Like, if that was the case, leave him in the locker, leave him behind. Don't let it be a spectacle. And it is weird because, like, you try to ask the question, what's going on, and everybody's answer is, we don't know.
Yeah.
And
that is concerning.
Not to be disrespectful to him as well. Now, if it was CD, like kind of a CD, just like wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, and do you think they would address it? And that's not to not put any knock on James Washington, because you both said, I think he's a good player. But like you said, Tyron Smith starting left tackle for the Cowboys, it's always going to get addressed. Whereas wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4, you're not really going to get a lot of comments on that. Are you really? They're not. Is it just one of them things where he's not the star of the team for that position, to use maybe a better term?
Yeah.
But if we want it, it'd be addressed straight away, because that would be the first question that they're coming from the media side, wouldn't it?
Yeah. No, I'm with you.
But I agree. It's weird. Like I say, if he's got boot on, why stick him out there? And all of a sudden, you've got everybody in a panic thinking, "Oh God, what's going on here? Why is he in a boat?"
Yeah, what's the issue? I would have just left him behind. He's not doing anything.
Right.
Bit of a weird one. Let's move on to the next guy then, who's on his rookie deal. The next two guys really are still on their rookie. Well, all of them are. But we'll talk specifically about these two guys, then we'll move on to the draft pick. Simi Fehoko on a rookie deal, 2 years left, $800K on the cap. Standard minimum, only his signing bonus is guaranteed. What do you guys make of him? Because I feel this, and he has spoken this week, that there's an opportunity for him to make waves here and really break into the roster. I think he, without knowing how he's going to develop, would be a great red zone target when he's needed. I'll ask you, Marcus, then I'll come to Jamie. Where do you feel Simi fits in with this roster? And bear in mind, he's a big Cowboys fan, if you remember last year. I think they could have used him last year at some point to see what they had. They didn't really. But where do you think, you see Simi in this role, in this roster, certainly in the first part when you got question marks for Talbot and Michael Gallup and James Washington, as we mentioned. I don't think it's a huge issue, but it could be. We'll put a question mark there. Simi could come in and have a starting role, yeah.
You took away my very first point I was about to make.
Yeah.
I look at Simi from last year. He had 7 offensive snaps.
Yeah.
And he had 0 special team snaps.
Yeah.
Now, that last one is the most concerning because you basically just gave a spot away to a guy who was completely non-productive for you.
Yeah. Useless. Yeah. Yeah.
So, and that was his first year. So everybody pretty much gets a pass if you're drafted. Yeah. So now we're in year 2. And like you said, there's an opportunity there because there are guys missing. He's probably our best height, weight, speed receiver, even more so than Lamb.
Yeah.
So
okay.
If he puts it all together, he has an opportunity to get some snaps. He was an inside-outside guy at Stanford. So he has everything you need in terms of tangible athletic ability.
Yeah.
It's really up to him. I mean, he could be a guy, and I hate to put this kind of wide span on him. He could be Miles Austin. He could be off the roster in August. I just don't know.
Yeah.
Because I saw nothing last year on a team that dealt with a lot of injuries.
Exactly. And that was the issue, is that there was opportunity for him to come in and they still refused to. Right. And he's not a small guy. He's 6'4", big hands, big arms, big arm length, and a weighty guy as well.
4.4,
and you just
4.4 speed.
Yeah. I just think that you really could have used him in the red zone, certainly. To get and you had chances later on in the year where you think, oh well, let's just see what we got, and they still refuse to. I don't know why. I don't know what the issues are. I don't know how he's how he's progressed. And all the rest of it. But I just think that this is a guy where if he has progressed, and like you say, with the playbook, if you wanted to put CeeDee Lamb, certainly in the earlier part of the season with question marks and injuries, you could put CeeDee Lamb as a flanker. And this is a guy, Simi Fehoko, you could play as the big slot role.
Right. He did it at Stanford.
Exactly. That's my point.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll say this before Jamie speaks. Like I said, he could be Miles Austin. He could be off the roster. If he's not a top 4 guy, he has a very hard chance of making his team.
I agree.
As a second-year player who does nothing on special teams.
With so many question marks, with injuries and roles and development. Yeah, I'm with you. What about you, Jay? What's your take on Simi Fehoko, or has everything been addressed?
No, it's just with Marcus saying about the special team snaps, and never really realised he didn't play any special teams. And like you say, that's a concern for someone there was a lot of hype from him, wasn't he, in training camp last year. Obviously made the roster, but essentially a wasted roster spot for him playing 7 snaps all season. I think if you look at, depending on how many running backs and tight ends that the Cowboys want to carry this year, you could probably put an argument that he's wide receiver 5, and that's just for the fact that because he's year 2. But the Cowboys brought quite a few in. There's undrafted free agents. They're going to be battling just as much to get a roster spot. So you say he could probably be, if they cut him, it wouldn't surprise me. But a little bit disappointing just with how the hype was last year coming into training camp on him. So I would like to see him, like you say, get some red zone targets or get some sort of special teams play to see what we've got in him. But yeah, he's going to have to watch his back this offseason just without, like I say, how many receivers the Cowboys have added to see what's out there and who can help make this back end of this roster a lot better.
Yeah. And I get his issues where we're coming out, that you get whenever you watched him in college and you've seen the physical corners get into him, he completely broke down. And when you think the NFL is all about press corner, that physical press, and they get into it, man coverage. and he did struggle with it. But you know, you get him into a gym, you get him working hard. You never know. This is what we're saying. And what's funny is a lot of people will say, oh, the roster last year was elite, and it's not going to be that way this year. And that I kind of agree with, but you don't know in terms of development how these guys are coming along. For me, Simi Fehoko, he perfectly is one of those players we're talking about. You don't know. Jamie, you mentioned Golston earlier. There's another guy. You don't know how these guys are going to develop from year 1 to year 2. If they develop it the way that you hope or you expect, then this roster could be on its way back up again. And Fehoko is one of those guys. But let's move to the next guy, and then we'll talk about Jalen Tolbert, and that is TJ Vasher, still on his rookie deal as well. 1 year left. Then he's a restricted free agent. $700K against the cap this year. Only minimum guarantees as well because he was an undrafted free agent. Joe's making a point. He's looking good in OTAs and practice. He is. For me, this guy, and I've always said it, and I said it last year when he was on the roster, that here is a jump ball specialist and a guy you will love in the red zone if you can get him to get past all the other issues. Hit us with us, Marcus. What do you make of TJ Vasher? Do you think he could make the roster, or is he back on the practice squad?
I don't want to get killed on this one. I personally think he has no shot of making the roster.
That's fair enough.
When I watched him play in college, I mean, I don't want to take anything from the jump ball ability. Long arms, very long guy. When even in college, when a corner got on him, he was out of the picture. And I'm pretty sure they saw that in camp because NFL level corners are different than when he saw at Texas Tech when it was completely wide open. And it was nothing but space.
And a lot could be said about the corners in that conference too, in college.
That's true. I mean, we didn't get a chance to see anything from him last year. He's a build-up receiver, and you can't be that size and be a build-up receiver where it takes you a long time to get going. And again, I mean, he's great at the 50-50 ball. He showed us that in college. But in the NFL, these guys are pretty good at 50-50 balls also. Not in terms of catching them, but at least knowing how to deflect them. So I think it's going to be an uphill battle for him to make this roster over some of these undrafted guys who came out this year who I think are a little bit better at separating and running routes, even though they may be slower.
Yeah, I mean, because the guy is 6'5", right? And he's got nearly 36-inch length arms, which means that your wingspan and the reach that you've got is astronomical. It's huge.
Like 7 foot, close to it.
It's crazy. You know, when you think that, and in the red zone, lovely stuff. You know, that's exactly, you know, you got that where it's a short field. So you use the third dimension. Here's a guy that you can do to use it. So you go vertical. But the trouble is I agree. And there's some other tangibles, not just the strength. Now, if you go and just type in, I don't know, TJ Vasher college stats or something, and you'll see, have a look at his drop rate. It is really bad.
Yes.
He drops a lot of balls. And on a roster where people are complaining about CeeDee Lamb, for instance, who's on 8 drops for the year, do you want to add another guy onto this in his first year who has already trouble with fumbleitis? But what's your take on the Texas Tech guy, Jay? I know you're a Texas Longhorns fan, so this will come at I don't know, great happiness or sadness to talk about him. What's your take on TJ Vasher?
Well, just before I mention that, there's been a lot of comments of another name in different positions. We have seen him just purposely leaving it towards the end just to throw another name in the mix. So don't worry, we're not ignoring him. We're just going to start him.
All right.
Okay. But he's coming towards the end of his rookie deal.
Yeah.
He's still buried deep in the depth chart. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't see what's on that. Like you say, 50-50 jump ball guy. Well, that's essentially what you're paying CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup to do in the end zone.
Yeah, Michael Gallup, certainly, yeah.
And if he's still buried this deep in the roster, this late into his contract, then yeah, like, I'm with Marcus. I can't see him. I can't. He's probably opening for practice squad at the best, isn't it?
Yeah. And just to tie in with the fumble problems as well, is I don't know what his 40 time is. That I would imagine would be quite slow. That he would take big strides when you watch him because he's so tall and lanky, but he's not really classed as adequately fast. You know, he's
even touching back on the fumbles, or drop ball, should I say? Sorry.
Yeah.
So, someone like a Gallup and a CD Lamb, because they were picked so high, you're gonna maybe I won't say allow it, but you'll kind of
compensate
a little bit for it because of where they were drafted. But someone that's drafted so late, undrafted free agent, you get a few of them, and it's gonna be like, this guy's not good.
Yeah, and you think as well with like CD Lamb, you can talk about drops. You got to think as well, A, the type of game he's playing, and B, the type of defenders he'll be up against. Like TJ Vasher isn't going to be up against your top quarterbacks on their roster. So, yeah, there's your issue. But let's talk about a guy we've really wanted to talk about. Is Jalen Tolbert, 3rd round pick this year from South Alabama. So he's on a 4-year rookie contract as per. 930 this year on the cap. He was out from OTAs earlier on this week with a hammy. It's not deemed as being serious or whatever problems there are. Rookie minicamp looked really, really good. We talked about it already as well. With Michael Gallup out, he's going to be deemed to have a starting role early in the season. So there's a lot of pressure on him already as a rookie this season, coming into the Cowboys, to have to perform and produce. We kind of touched briefly on his style already, that he's that long outside Z type burner who's just going to go downfield on your 9 routes, your bang 9s, post and corners. This guy can really, really stretch the field, which the Cowboys, ironically, have been missing for a long time. You know, that really top-tier speedy type guy? Yeah. For me, though, and we talked about Michael Gallup being one of the steals in the 3rd round. Again, they strike at you. I think Jalen Tolbert is just as much of a steal than Michael Gallup was. What do you guys think?
Me personally,
yeah,
I loved Michael Gallup coming out.
Yeah,
I had Gallup as my number 2 receiver behind the kid that went to Carolina. I can't even think of his name now.
DJ Moore.
DJ Moore. He was my number 2. I thought he was better than Calvin Ridley.
Yeah.
Like when Gallup didn't go in the 1st round, I was shocked. And when he made it to the 3rd, I was jumping up and down. Now, that's not saying I don't like Tolbert, but that's just how high I was on Gallup. I think we definitely got him at a position that I thought he wouldn't be at. I had him more of a top 60-ish guy. So for him to fall to the position he did was definitely good for us.
Yeah.
I think he's better suited for that Z than Gallup is, because I think he's a little bit more explosive out of his breaks. He's one of those guys where Gallup is more of a, I'm going to keep you close to my hip and then just out jump you. I think Tolbert has a second gear where if we're even at 5 yards, at 10 yards, I'm gone.
Yeah.
So I think that's a element we haven't had at the wide receiver position for a while in terms of a deep guy. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do in that role.
Yeah, I'm with you. And like a lot of people say, though, like, why are you so high on a wide receiver from South Alabama? And I don't know what you reckon, Marcus and Jamie, if you agree with this. I think that a lot of teams in the recruiting process overlook this guy because he's from Florida, if I believe rightly. He's from that area, which is a big football sort of, area to recruit from. And I think he just got diluted in all of that. And got overlooked. And I definitely think he's a guy that could have quite easily, if he continued playing in college, would have gone to a Power 5 team.
Yeah. For the people that are concerned, it's certain positions. I don't care where you get them from. If you're good, you're good.
If you're good, you're good, yeah.
Wide receiver, cornerback, running back. some defensive tackle, something like that. If you're a good player and you show you're a good player, it'll translate.
Mm.
And you're not expecting him to be your number one stud guy either. I think he's good enough to be the number 3 cornerback in his league day one.
Yeah. And so do you think then, and I'll ask you first, Jamie, do you think the battle at the moment in terms of wide receiver core is between Talbot and Washington, with Washington right now taking the edge, but there's this battle right now that is going to be going on with MP for that outside wide receiver till Michael Gallup comes back?
Oh, without a doubt, I say Washington probably gets the edge just because of his experience. He's played at a high level on a decent Steelers team. So he automatically, like you say, probably doesn't take it. Doesn't try to find the right words to say. Doesn't have massive big game impact in terms of what Gallup could probably bring you, but he makes you feel a little bit more comfortable going into the season. Say if he starts wide receiver 2 compared to a Talbot, whereas Talbot you'll allow him to naturally progress into that wide receiver 3. So even when Gallup comes back, you'll probably see them two then split the reps at 3. But yeah, it's definitely an exciting pick, and just kind of touch back about, like Marcus just said, they're good enough. Do you know what I mean? Don't matter where you get them from. Look at some of the best Titans, best wide receivers to play the game, and look at the colleges they played for. Like I say, it doesn't matter. If they're explosive, they're explosive.
Yeah. Look at Jerry Rice.
And then you could look at Randy Moss played at Marshall.
Yeah.
Just to name 2.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. Like you say, if you're good, you're good. And here's a crazy one as well. People talk about Jalen Talbot's speed, but what people overlook a little bit too is in his pro day, he ended up doing the shuttle drill and did it in 4.24.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes to show that it's not just his acceleration and his top end speed. He's got that stop start ability. Mm-hmm. Which is going to be really interesting. And I just hope that whatever the issues are with him, with the hammy, people are saying that it's not a serious thing and he just needs rest time and recover. You know, these are rookies coming into an NFL team, so they do get beasted, to say the least. That is nothing too serious. And I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do. And I think, me personally, I actually think Talbot is, when you think about the question marks with how the wide receiver core will look in a few years, I actually believe Talbot is going to be one of those guys who's going to stick around for quite a while.
Yeah. And I like his mentality too, because I don't think he's afraid of coming from South Alabama and lining up against the NFL corner.
Yeah. He's the chip on your shoulder attitude.
Yeah.
Yeah, you like that with those type of guys. Mm-hmm. But let's look at the last few guys then. They're all the UDFAs. And I'll just quickly get a take from you guys. And then I've got a final question for you, which is a guy who isn't a wide receiver. So we got Dontario Drummond, UDFA, Ty Freifogel, Jaquari Robinson, Brandon Smith, Dennis Houston, all on 3-year deals, $850K average. Although Brandon Smith is 2-year because he was on the practice squad last year. So he's the only guy that's the long-standing. Which of those guys, and they're coming across the screen as well, do you think are going to stick? For me, I'm already out on Ty Freifogel. Not that I don't think he's talented. I just think that his ability, he's that one-trick pony that we've already got. Mm-hmm. That I just think that we've already got that on the roster, so he's really going to struggle. For me, though, it's Dontario Drummond is the guy who's going to stick around for me, mainly because of special teams ability. I think he'll find a role in that.
So let me ask you this question, because that's interesting you say that. What's his one trick and who has it? I'm curious what you think.
In
Freifogel.
Freifogel, it's so okay. Before we go into that, then I'm going to ask you where you're going, and I'll hit you back with my answer. No. Go on, then. What was? What is he a guy that you quite like then? Have I
Yes.
hit on something?
Yes, I'm just curious because I see him as a guy.
Yeah.
If he's not your number 4, he's not on the roster. So I agree with that.
That's my problem. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that he's not a good player, like I said
agree.
at the start. Yeah, I think
he's talented enough to take a spot.
Yeah.
He should have came out in 2020. He had like a 4-game span that was absolutely ridiculous against some top level corners who came out that year. He came back 2021. He suffered a lot because his quarterback was awful, and his stats reflected it. And then running a 4.6 or whatever he ran in the 40 didn't help either.
Yeah.
But I think he has inside-outside ability. I love his ability to find gaps in space and turn and catch the ball, and he has a pretty good catch radius.
Yeah.
But like you said, if he's not contributing offensively, he has a very slim chance of beating out anybody else.
My issue is that he's not going to give you anything on special teams, right? And you're a UDFA. You UDFA. He's got you got nothing to offer on special teams. So my one trick pony, because I just wanted to hear what you had to say first. I'm not trying to catch you out.
No, that's good.
But yeah. So like, his speed, it's okay. It's not great, as you say. But my issue with him is that he will only want to play down on the outside on the flanks. Does not take catches in the middle. Refuses to play there. And then you watch that. Watch him trying to get in and out of his breaks is a struggle.
Yeah.
So you got a guy that isn't going to play special teams and only wants to play on the outside. Well, you've already got that with James Washington and Michael Gallup. So his that in terms of the one trick pony detail is that what I mean is that he's only going to play as an outside flanker, and you've already got that on your roster. He's not going to provide special teams. So I think I'm not saying he's a bad player. I'm just saying that he's trapped on a roster where you've already got something better than him. So how is he going to get in?
I was just wondering what you thought his one trait was, because I thought it was just ability to find openings in zones. That's the only thing he has, but he does it very well.
Yeah, on the outside, and he will do it because he's got great rhythm in his running.
He does.
So when he accelerates, it's very smooth, which is great for a wide receiver because leading him for catches, you get that, and it's nice. Good with the jump balls, and to get vertical, he can do that at ease, and you can catch the ball away from his body, which is a big one.
Yeah.
And he'll just box players out, which is great. But the other one as well is going back to try and think is that he also, if you look throughout his college careers, he started off high and progressively, statistically got worse with each season. And I want to see it stepping up, not down.
I agree. Samuel Rowe, we're talking about Ty Freifogel. We're kind of focused on the undrafted free agent guys right now.
That's what I mean by the one trick pony, side of it all.
Yeah.
I know there's a bit more to it than that.
Oh, I don't disagree. I was just wondering what the one trick was you saw. I thought
just as an outside player is what I mean by that. Yeah. Just as that's all you're really gonna get from him, and you've already got that. But what about you, Jay? Anything from the undrafted free agents you particularly like? Dontario, Jaquari?
I'm not going to lie. I haven't really studied a lot of them. To be fair, so just with them being undrafted, you're probably looking. A couple of them probably will have a shot at the practice squad.
I think they will. And I think when you talk about, like Marcus started the show off talking about the depth of wide receivers, that there is good depth there. So at least utilize some of that in terms of development and put them onto the practice squad and see what you get.
Yeah. Can I talk about two of them really quick?
Yeah, go on, man.
Well, of course, I got to start off my Ole Miss guy. And I agree. This is the guy I think makes the roster. He gives it to you inside, outside, tough runner. I compare him very strongly to Jarvis Landry.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, just in case people don't know my Ole Miss guy, who are you talking about?
Dontario Drummond.
Yeah.
Wide receiver. He doesn't run routes as well as Landry because Landry is a technician, even running whatever he ran in the 40.
Yeah.
But Drummond runs good enough routes, but that's not his strength. His strength is he's going to catch the ball, and the first guy's not bringing him down. And I think that's going to translate very well to punt return.
There you go.
We don't have a punt returner right now.
And that's why I said Dontae Drummond. Yeah.
He averaged 10 yards return in college, and on almost every one of them, he broke a tackle. He broke the first tackle. So if he can go out there and show that he can do that, I mean, he's at least your sixth receiver just as your punt returner. And I think he can give you some decent snaps on offense if you needed 7 or 8 catches, which is about what you can expect for this team.
Yeah.
A guy that's really interesting that when I watch tape on him, I just don't know what he's going to do in the NFL. Ja'Quari Roberson.
We were on the same time.
Did you want to talk about him?
Yeah, no, definitely. Because when you were saying it, I was like, I bet he's going to say Ja'Quari because I've seen the same thing.
Yeah. Like height, weight, speed.
Yeah.
In and out of breaks. He has it. And then he has the stats to back it up because I looked it up. Outside of Jahan Dotson and John Mechie, he had the most receiving yards in college football.
Yeah.
And this is an undrafted guy that ran a 4.3, a 4.4, sub 7 3-cone, 40-inch vertical. So he has all the athletic traits you want. And when I watch his tape, I don't see the route running, but I see the explosiveness and I see the separation. Like, I don't know how he gets separation.
Yeah, I know.
But every time I watch him play, he runs a 5-yard slant, a 7-yard post, and he's wide open and he outruns everybody.
Yeah.
Like, it looks like a highlight.
He's got a small frame as well for doing it.
He's a small guy, yeah. Like, his tape looks like a highlight clip to me.
And what is funny is I Googled for one time on YouTube and I was like, and he came up with this and I was like, who the hell is this guy? Right. This was one hell of a highlight tape. And then what's funny is you'll say that. So then you go, right, okay, I'm going to actually try and find the game tape and see what he's about. And it ends up being like the highlight tape.
Right. Just watch a game. He had 7 catches for 180 yards. And all of them look like 30-yard, just catch it and fly.
Yeah. And I'm exactly with you because he doesn't have the ideal size, doesn't have the ideal strength.
Doesn't run routes real.
Doesn't know. He's lean. He looks frail. Gets overmatched at the line of scrimmage, and yet somehow you're watching it and you're like, oh, he's wide open. And then you watch it again and you go, oh, okay, he's managed to cut a break on a release and he's catching one across the middle. And you're just going, well, how is he doing this? What's this magical thing that he's doing? Is he hypnotizing the cornerbacks? And he catches everything and he's well balanced. And like you say, just has a knack for getting open. And ironically, Forrest go on to have a pretty decent year. And there he is in amongst it all, you know, making all these highlight real catches. And as a deep threat, I certainly think he is a guy you have to pay attention to. In terms of the undrafted free agents, my 2 guys, Dontario Drummond is first, mainly because of special teams. And the other guy, my outside guy, is Ja'Quari. That's for certain. But then here's my last one then, guys, and we'll wrap all of this up, is one guy who isn't a wide receiver, and I'm not talking tight ends because we talked tight ends last week, is Tony Pollard.
Yeah.
Now, we're looking at 20-man personnel, which I've been beating the drum on for like the last 3 years. I keep saying it every year, and everybody says no. They have actually been doing it in OTAs, whether it transitions into the playbook and into the regular season, I don't know. But he has been playing from the slot. Is this something you guys think the Cowboys need to do to utilize Pollard a bit more?
Jamie, I'll let you go first because I can talk about Pollard all day.
I think everybody knows my love. I love Tony Pollard. I think he's the most underrated player on this roster.
Yeah.
If you look at him year on year as a running back, I think he's improved. But he also, like I say, out of the slot, gives you just a little bit something different to confuse the confuse the opposition defense. I love him. I'd love to see a lot of see him utilize a lot in the slot this year. I think it'd be perfect just on how this offense likes to spread the ball around, and he's got great speed. He's got great hands as well. I would love to see him. Yeah. Massive fan of Tony Pollard.
I just think they need to use the 20-man personnel more in whichever way, because it's only going to help Zeke, who has been, by the way, looking good in OTAs too. But I definitely think that you think of, and we're talking mismatches all the time, but I just think Michael Gallup one side, CeeDee Lamb the other. Okay, depending on how you want to utilize the next guy is up to you, whether it's Schultz or another wide receiver. But then imagine that you've got all that going on the field, and then you decide to throw Zeke and Tony Pollard in the backfield. As a defense, what are you doing? Which part are you defending? You just have a richness of opportunity for Dak to play with there.
Yeah. Let me say this about Pollard, because I feel like there's a bit of revisionist history with him.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
I mean, I've watched, and I can say confidently, I watched half of his high school games. He's Memphis's first son, high school football, and college. I watched half of his high school games. That kid was an amazing slot receiver. He played 3 years at University of Memphis. People assume he was a running back. He was an amazing slot receiver at Memphis. He was, in my opinion, the third best running back on that team, but he was the second best wide receiver. And he was just doing it from both aspects, similar to the running back from Washington, Antonio Gibson.
Yeah.
People assume he's a great running back. He was a great wide receiver in college. They just have that trait. You can put him at wide receiver, and I think he'll be an NFL wide receiver tomorrow, because he's done it his whole career. He's only played running back consistently in the NFL.
Yeah.
The wide receiver traits are there. You put him at slot, it's not putting the fish out of water.
Yeah.
You're, in my opinion, putting him back at the natural position he's played since 7th grade.
Yeah, and you think that when you look at it, really, he's only been that running back because of his size, his frame, and his bulk to absorb contact. So yeah, and that's why I wanted to put Pollard in that question, because they have been utilizing it, and it is, I feel, something they start to need to utilize a lot more. Like, he could actually, because he does have a very similar size and build and makeup and measurables as the 49ers wide receiver. I didn't want to bring that name up because that's the new hot button topic for everybody. Yeah. Everybody's Deebo Samuel now. Yeah. But he's a guy that could do that. And somebody do that. But somebody asked the question earlier, who do we think, because Cedric Wilson has left the roster and you know, he's gone off to be the wide receiver 7 for Miami. But like they said, who could take that role? I think Tony Pollard is a good way to go.
Pollard could definitely be a better receiver than Wilson if given a chance. Wilson's another guy that I've been following quite a bit coming out of Memphis. He's honestly, last year shocked me. I know fans love him. He came and stepped up when he needed to.
Yeah.
But you look at the 2 years before, that's who I've always thought Wilson was. He's a number 5 receiver. He can probably give you 15, 20 catches a year if he has to. Yeah. Last year was, to me, more of an anomaly than the normal.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why I said at the beginning of the show, I think this is one of our most talented receiving cores, because I think our 1 through 4 are all better than Cedric Wilson, who we had as our number 4 last year.
I feel so sorry for him. He goes over there and he's like, yes, look what's going on. And then, you know, post-draft, you look at what's going on, and I bet he's just like, oh, no. Because they've even got another ex-Cowboy over there as well who could tower over him.
Which Cowboy is that?
Alan Hearns.
Alan Hearns, yeah.
So
if healthy, I think he's a better receiver than Wilson too.
That's what I mean. Yeah, he can. Do you know what I mean? So you're just looking at Wilson. You could just imagine him looking at the depth chart, going down. I go down. Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! And then Alan Hearns gets healthy. Oh no!
All right,
Man, good. And like, you think how much money they spent to have Wilson over there too. Man alive! But that is it, man. I said to you when we were talking, come over, come and talk to us for an hour. I know it's afternoon in the Tennessee, and we've gone way, way over. As always, mate, when we start talking Cowboys, times always runs over.
Can I say this real quick before we get out?
Mate. Go on, you go for it.
Cedric Wilson, I just got to make this one last point. If Cedric Wilson was here, people would consider him our number 2 receiver. I think Washington is better than him. I think whatever you thought Cedric Wilson was going to be as our number 2, put those same expectations on James Washington. Because for his career, he's been a better receiver than Cedric Wilson with a worse quarterback.
I'm with you. I say Washington is better. I totally agree. So, and like you said, if you look at the wide receivers 1 through 4 this year, or even 1 through 5 even, you could say it's a better call than it was previously. Yeah. So, yes, that wraps this week's positional breakdown series. Next week, it is the offensive line. So we'll be hitting that. We could ask Marcus to come back, but it depends what he's doing. Mate, the way it's going, we'll just be adding you to the roster of the show.
I can always talk offensive lineman.
Well, that's what we're on. We'll see how that one rocks. But yes, guys, thank you very much for joining us. And as we do, where are you? You're on here somewhere, mate. There you are. There's Bluff City Cowboys up there in the middle. On the top line as well. See, we don't mess about, mate. We don't mess about. So make sure you go and follow all of these various content creators and friends of ours. And of course, as well, make sure if you've got any questions about going to a game next year, send us some messages. Ask us all about it. We've got big things coming up as well. Me and Jamie are about to release the news on that after the weekend. It's all about a little UK Cowboys tour that's going to be happening next year. And it will involve people from the UK. So that news is breaking next week. But Marcus, we'll say it again. Thank you very much for joining us, sir. It was a pleasure. What was it? April, May, June. So 2 months. It's way too long to go without talking to you.
Yeah.
That's way too long. We won't let that happen again. But everyone at home, thank you very much for joining us. We'll be back next Thursday to talk about the offensive line. So that's going to be a lot of fun. So we'll speak to you then. Have a great weekend. Stay safe, everyone. Take us out, Jamie.
Yep. Thanks to Marcus again for joining us. It's been good as always, buddy. And everyone have a great and safe weekend. And we'll catch you all next week.
Whoop, whoop.